Hey there, I'm Joe Carter. If you've ever popped the hood and thought, where do I even start? You're in good company. Around here, we take the mystery out of car repair, one fix at a time. Whether you're a beginner or just looking to sharpen your skills, there's something here for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're into learning without the headaches. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get into it.
The unit is a conventional ball bearing. In some versions of the design, the bearing can be coupled with a plate resting in the upper seat of the spring. This is the design used on the Opel Astra F, but it does not make a fundamental difference in the replacement process. Metal brush for cleaning bolts before unscrewing, penetrating grease, WD-40 or its analogues. The steering knuckle can be removed with a special puller or a hammer. Also, a hammer and an insert of the required diameter may be required if the outer ball joint is stuck on the splines to the hub. On the methods of replacing the bearings without removing the axle is mentioned in the video, but in most cases it is really easier to unscrew the hub nut. Refer to your vehicle's service manual for fastener dimensions and torque requirements. Unless you have locksmith experience and a well-honed muscle feel for tightening nuts, we recommend that assembly be performed only with a torque wrench. It goes without saying that you will not be able to bend the threads of the hub nut, but you can ruin the threads of the caliper guide mounts. Dismantling the shock absorber strut on cars whose suspension parts have not been disconnected for a long time, it is recommended. To clean the fasteners from dirt and fill them with penetrating grease or brake fluid a day before the repair. The described instruction and video will be devoted to the replacement of support bearings on the example of Skoda Fabia. Loosen the hub nut and wheel mounting bolts. Since the clamping force is quite high, it will be extremely difficult to loosen it alone after lifting the vehicle. Unless you are changing the brake discs together with the support bearings, then you can afford to insert a screwdriver into the stiffening ribs of the disc. In this way you will fix it in the caliper. The nut can be unscrewed by asking someone to push down hard on the brake pedal. Of course, all these options require more labor than loosening the nut when the car is still on the wheels and can be secured with chocks, handbrake. Raise the car and secure it on sturdy chocks. The car must never hang permanently on the jack. Chocks must be installed under the wheels. Remove the wheel. Unscrew the retaining bolt of the brake hose mounting bracket. Unscrew the steering lug nut. If the lug is not rotated around its axis, there will be no need to perform camber after the repair. To remove the lug, use a puller or hit the pivot arm of the rack several times with a hammer. Unscrew the hex bolt securing the caliper to the knuckle. Rotate the caliper slightly and pull it out of its seat along with the brake pads. Suspend the caliper or put something underneath it. It must never hang on the brake hose. Remove the brake disc. Unscrew the hub nut. Unscrew the ball bearing mounting bolts. If the ball joint is riveted to the arm, unscrew the upper mounting bolt. After that, it is best to remove it with a puller. If the distance from the end of the bolt to the ball joint does not allow you to unscrew the nut, the rivets will have to be drilled out, and then replaced with bolts with nuts and washers. Knock the drive shaft out of the splines in the hub. The video shows an effective method of removal using a perforator in the jackhammer mode. Unscrew the upper bolt securing the front strut support. It is better to do it with a helper, as there is nothing holding the strut except these nuts. Removing the pivot bearing. How to remove the pivot bearing? Tighten the spring a little with cable ties. Use only good quality cable ties. As the compression force required is high, a spring that has come loose can cause serious injury. Hold the rod with the hexagon and loosen the nut securing the upper strut support. Tighten the spring until the strut bearing is free. Installation features. You are left to install the new support bearing and reassemble the shock absorber strut in the reverse order to removal. Some nuances. The shock absorber stem nut can be tightened only until the stem starts to crank, as it will be much more convenient. To fully tighten the nut after the strut is in place, holding the stem with a hexagon. After unclamping, the spring should sit in the special seats for the last coil. It is not recommended to tighten the shock absorber rod nut with a wrench. Before installing the caliper guides, be sure to lubricate them with special grease. Do not forget to cotter the hub nut if manual cottering is necessary. Lubricate all threaded joints, places of tapered seating of steering knuckles, ball bearing, stabilizer bones with graphite grease. In the future, this will greatly facilitate the disassembly process. Special attention should be shown to the owners of cars that have inclined strut supports. If incorrectly installed, the new support bearing will bite. For trouble-free installation during assembly, paint or scratch marks on the strut support and on the upper spring seat housing. General recommendations. In the video, the master mentions the need for preventive replacement of strut pads on some models of VAG Group cars. This does not apply to variants of strut pads without embedded threads. As practice shows, the front strut support bearings have approximately equal life. Therefore, if during the diagnosis of the suspension of the car you have found a defect of the support bearing, we recommend to replace both bearings at once. After all, with a high degree of probability, you can predict the imminent failure of so far serviceable element. We recommend reading the article on diagnostics of the chassis of the car, in which you will find a guide to checking the support. Bearings, strut supports, shock absorbers, steering knuckles, ball bearings, silent blocks, hub bearing, etc. Support bearing device, car suspension devices, how to change shock absorbers, ball bearing, puller couplers for springs.